Good afternoon and welcome back to the Polity. If you're just joining us, you've not missed too much. Now let's start the program proper. I will be joined by Stephen Adewale, public affairs analyst, of course, to analyze most of the headlines and not just that, what is happening on the Polity. Good afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm glad to be
It's good to have you once again on the program.
I'm glad to be
let's quickly delve into it because of our time. I'd like us to start with State of the Nations and recent happenings and the Polity before we get into today's topic proper. And I'd like to recall one of the papers this morning. Nigerian Tribune actually stated something that caught, of course, everybody's attention. It said INEC records 1,000 pre-election litigations on 2023 poll. Where does that leave the judiciary, given that we have 3 more elections to hold this year? And of course, they come out to equally say some political parties do not even have candidates because of the number of litigations that they've had to, of course, settle. And now the judiciary has equally moved most of the cases from each state to Abuja and Lagos. Now, what happens? That's the question.
Thank you very much. It's quite unfortunate that we find ourselves in this mess. But the truth is that this will continue as long as our federal government agencies, such as INEC in this situation, continue to promise what they could not deliver. Before we handle this question, now we are having a Kogi election in next month. Then we are having a Bayelsa and Imo State. Now INEC is already promising again that the election will be electronically transmitted. It's not just even that it's going to be transmitted, but it's going to be transmitted electronically. Now, if you look at what happened the last election, one would have expected INEC to promise what they actually know they can deliver. Now, at the end of the day, if INEC fails to deliver what they promise, definitely a lot of aggrieved parties will have to approach the court. Now, INEC will continue to find itself in this mess, but one can only hope that whatever litigations the agency is going to be at, it's not going to affect the 3 elections that is coming, because now we have only 3. The election is taking place in only 3 states, which means that unlike the last general election where they have to focus on 36 states of the federation, 35 states of the federation, including the FCT, now they now have to focus only on 3 states, which means that there is no excuse whatsoever. One can also hope that probably INEC will use this coming election to redeem its image, because if you look, it's not just about doing the right thing. Now INEC needs to be consider its image and be conscious of its image in the court of public opinion. Presently, the general opinion, the preponderant opinion of the masses is that INEC is not doing the right thing, and you don't even need to research, you don't even need to read papers or go back to history books before you can actually read that conclusion. All you just have to do is listen to what they have said, especially the national chairman of INEC, listen to what they've promised in the time past, and listen to what and now observe what actually happened on ground on the day of the election. So it's quite unfortunate, like I said, but definitely the number of litigations will continue to increase, and the federal government will continue to spend money on all these litigations, because now it's lawyers that are going to be cashing out, definitely. So
well, I like this part of lawyers cashing out, because people have been saying this over and over again. Now, speaking about promises, remember that they've said during a presidential election that they were going to actually transmit most of the results in real time, and then now the court has translated it to promises, not a constitutional law. There's no constitution backing up or no electoral act actually backing up we will transmit results in real time. What do you think this means for these 3 elections coming up? Because now, if they do not, of course, fulfill their duties, or let's say the election is not credible enough, they can easily come out and say, we promised. It's not part of the Electoral Act.
During the recently concluded general election, I was actively involved with one of the political parties that contested that during that general election. Now, after the election, the 3 leading political parties, PDP, APC, the 2 leading opposition parties, APC and PDP and the Labour Party, decided to approach the court. But our own political party decided not to go, and we have our reasons, because I was fully on ground in Ondo State at that time, and my experience showed that for you to approach the court and for you to be able to convince the court that this election was genuinely rigged, was actually rigged, then we need to have genuine and incontrovertible evidence, which no leading opposition parties had at that time. Because the truth, in Ondo State, let me give you the example of what happened in Ondo State. In Ondo State, we have about 3,998 polling units. Now, APC, which happened to be the ruling party, was able to present agents in all the available polling units. PDP was able to present in 3,991 polling units, about 8 short of APC. Then SDP was able to present agents in about 1,004 polling units. Now, even Labour Party only managed to present about 298 polling unit agents. Now, here is the question: even those other parties like PDP, for example, many of them were not even loyal to Atiku, who happened to be the presidential candidate at that time. Some of them were loyal to Olusegun Mimeko in Ondo State, who was also working hand in hand with Wike in PDP at that time. So the party was even polarized at that point in time. Now, if you now want to go to court, because if you look at our constitution, just as you have said that the court interpreted what INEC did. Now, the constitution had already given a lot of power, or ceded a lot of power to INEC. The constitution believes that INEC concludes the election, then that INEC has already done its own constitutional part. So if you now feel that INEC has not done its part, then the burden of proof lies on you. And it's not supposed to be so, because this is a federal government agency responsible to the people. So now it's not the people that are supposed to go and say, okay, these are the proof. But that's what the constitution says. So you are not just only suing INEC, we are even proving that we have the incontrovertible evidence to show that this thing actually happened. Now, in a situation where you don't even have polling unit agent, remember we are going to need the original copies of each of those result sheets. Now, in a situation where SDP, for example, will only manage to present maybe it's not even all the polling unit agents that came, because on the election day a lot of factors will play out. A lot of people will have to sell out, collect money from the ruling party, and they will not show up. A case where you are not able to present about 300 polling unit agents. If you are now going to court to challenge what INEC did in Ondo State, so where are you going to get the evidence in all the available in all the remaining polling units? So these are the problem. It still has to do with structures. All our opposition parties today, the opposition parties don't really have what it takes to even compete with the ruling party, because what we call structure, you cannot just push it aside. Right. So as for the INEC, whatever happened in the past, I don't really have any belief I don't really believe that something positive or extraordinary things will come out of this coming election, because they are still making the same promise. Now let me tell you why it will not work. Now if INEC comes and tells us that okay, that they are going to transmit this election via IRF, remember that even if you look at the country, the situation of the country will not even allow what INEC is already promising. Now in the country today, I don't want to talk about what is happening in Kogi, Imo and Bayelsa, but in the entire country today, the statistics shows that the country only has a 16% broadband capacity, which shows that if you actually want to transmit election electronically, then it shows that you must be able to cover all the remote places. My station whereby we only have 60% broadband capacity. So what is going to happen in all those remote places where they don't even have access to internet, where even SIM cards are not working? So it's not really going to work. We just have to be sincere with ourselves, and our agency and our government needs to be sincere with the people. But definitely, whatever happens will definitely happen. You see, after the election, I give parties will still go to court. But the question is that will they actually have genuine evidence for them to be able to approach the court? Because once it gets to court, we have to be able to convince the judges that this thing actually happened. But if you don't have the evidence, at the end of the day, it will they will say they will throw it out. Just like the one of the judges said recently at the tribunal that, are you expecting us to go to the market and search for the evidence?
I don't think INEC could actually even submit evidence, because isn't that shooting themselves in the foot, saying, oh, I've presented this and what if they even do not give the real certificate?
That's what I'm saying. Now INEC, it shows that INEC is not, INEC has something to hide. If you look at what has been happening in our country since 2007, INEC has been proving that you cannot really, has been shown that you can't really trust them. Now look, let me cite an example, and we will place it side by side. Recently, there was a case of a lady who claimed to have scored 364 in a UTME. Now, the lady presented her own certificate. Now, a joint admission matriculation board came out with intimidating evidence to show that this thing was actually, that this thing did not happen. Now, eventually, they were able to convince virtually all the people that this thing was actually a forgery. But so that's how. But unfortunately, in the case of INEC, our constitution did not give INEC opportunity and room to do that. Ordinarily, if you love your agency, if you love your institution, why don't you bring out the evidence? INEC is at the custody, is the one in charge of all this evidence. If you say, okay, we conduct an election at this so-so state, and the election was actually transparent and nothing happened, then why don't you bring out all the evidence? But our constitution says that you approach the court, you are the one that will bring the evidence. So now INEC continue to capitalize on that. So JAMB could have done that as well and said, okay, the lady should go to court, but when they know that they have nothing to hide, so they have to show the evidence to the general public. So why don't you bring out that evidence? If you believe that, okay, APC won the election fair and square, then why don't you bring out the evidence? Let everybody see what happened. But not that you promise something today, then tomorrow you do something else, and you said, okay, that the electoral law gives you room to do this. So these are the problems that we have, and it will continue as long as we are not sincere with ourselves. It will continue as long as there is no clear autonomy between the presidency and some of these agencies. We continue to have this problem either with INEC or with EFCC or with ICPC, because we know that whoever pays the piper will definitely dictate the tune.
And speaking about autonomy, do you actually think independent National Electoral Commission is actually independent?
Definitely they are not. It's just the name of the organization has been changed over time. There was a time that they called them FEDECO, Federal Electoral Commission. But at that time, a lot of people were arguing, a lot of people were criticizing that this organization, this agency was not independent. The then leadership of the country promised that, okay, there was going to be independent, they were going to be independent. Now they now introduce what they call National Electoral Commission. Now by 1999, when we wanted to embark on this democratic adventure, they decided, okay, for us to feel we're actually independent, let's add independent to the name. But the independent was only in the name. That's Independent National Electoral Commission. But when you look at everything that is happening in the organization, how the presidency is getting involved in day-to-day activities of the organization, you know that there is nothing independent in them. Virtually all the agencies in Nigeria. That's why I said this APC is quite unfortunate. APC happen to be APC politicians. They happen to be people who were at the vanguard of autonomy, of restructuring at a point. But when they got there in 2015, they even doubled down. At least between 2012 and 2014, elections took place in a good number of states. And we saw what happened. Opposition parties won election, despite the fact that PDP was in power at the federal level during Dr. Goodluck Jonathan's era. But beginning from 2015, we realized that there was this kind of synergy that now started existing between, even we can even say between probably some part of judiciary and even some virtually all these agencies. So that's independence was not actually there. So independence should not just be a name. Virtually all the things we've been witnessing over time in our country, that's what continues to set us back. Even the Central Bank of Nigeria, for example, supposed to be independent. In the United States of America that we always claim to borrow our democratic ideas from, there are agencies that that it was clear that they were independent. Look at their electoral commission in the United States of America, for example. During the last election between then President Donald Trump and now President Joe Biden, the sitting president of America lost election. The president did not want to leave. To him, he felt that election was rigged, and to him, he felt that the power must not be transmitted to the Biden. But what happened at the end of the day? The agency continued the process because they have that freedom, they have that liberty, but that cannot actually happen in our own country. So we need to be able to get to that level where whoever becomes the president will say, okay, I just want to rule the country in a just way. Then let there be independent. You shouldn't be the president and you are the one that will still be dictating to the FCC chairman. Look at a lot of even the FCC now. FCC that's supposed to. This is the time that we even need the commission the most. But if you look at the processes of even appointing the head of the EFCC, you realize that the process was even enmeshed in corruption, in confusion, and a lot of problems.
You would actually take me off course because I wanted us to just stick to judiciary before we go off course. But then now that you've mentioned the EFCC, the new EFCC chairman, of course, had to go through the rigorous process of the National Assembly and all of that. And yesterday he said anti-graft war should start from National Assembly. Do you actually think he will be able to keep up to what he has just said now? Because now in Nigeria we've seen over time that people just come and talk, and I like to borrow the Nigerian layman language, talk is cheap. It's one thing for you to say one thing, be there though, I'm going to hit the ground running. But you think you would actually be able to keep up with this? The anti-graft war should start from the National Assembly. Do you think, given that, of course, he was appointed, he wasn't elected, do you think he would actually be able to work properly without being caged by politics and all of that, given that he can't checkmate most of these people because they're politicians, whether you like it or not? Well,
he will not be the first chairman of the commission that will be making promises that he himself knows that he cannot keep. We had a man between 2005 and 2007 when he happened to be the pioneer chairman of the agency, and the person of Nuhu Ribadu. Nuhu Ribadu at that time was busy living everywhere, promising heaven on earth. At the end of the day, even the people that it was clear that it was clear that these people were corrupt, but just because they were close to the sitting president at the time, many of them were left untouched. And the person who is now the chairman of the FCC, remember that it's not even new to the system. It was also, if one thing is that if you are already part of the problem, you cannot expect it to be part of the solution. Now this man was there. In fact, he was the secretary to the commission, and when he was secretary to the commission, that the account of that commission was audited. And one of the recommendations at the time was that all the leadership of that commission at that time, with Magu, who happened to be the chairman of the agency at that time, that all of them should be suspended indefinitely. That suspension had not been overturned. Now the man came back now despite the fact that he was suspended about 4 years ago. Now the man came back. So, and when it was being audited, when those allegations were being levied at, and so he has not even come out to even clear his name that this thing was not actually the way people presented it. So the same man is coming now, and so I don't really believe in it. I don't really believe anything is going to happen. And as for the rigorous process of passing through the National Assembly, I don't see our National Assembly, either at the National or even the State Assembly, I don't see any of them going against the decision of the president. At the end of the day, probably the worst is he will get there, will appeal to them. I'm sorry for making this statement, and even without apologizing to them, is definitely not going to follow it through, because we know the people who are the leader. We know who happens to be the chairman of APC now. We know what happened when the man was the governor of Kano State. So why would we have the EFCC chairman and we are expecting something good from that same man, and they are not looking in that direction? We know what happened between NDDC and even Akpabio about 3 or 4 years ago. We know all these things. Now nobody is talking about all that. So people are pushing all these things aside. They are pushing it under the carpet, and they felt, okay, with time everybody will just forget and we move on. After all, they felt we live in a country where everybody is supposed to have a short memory. So it's quite unfortunate. Well,
Nigerians, you've heard that we are supposed to have short memory, but then we have to prove to the politicians that we do not have short-term memory. And speaking about short-term memory, there's something that has been happening over the week, over and over again, and then it was brought up in the papers today, where they said reject technicality, overrule Tinubu on fresh evidence. That's what Atiku has told the Supreme Court. But do you think the Supreme Court would actually accept this new evidence?
Well, the case is already in court, so I think I'm not a lawyer anyway, so I think I can hear my personal and
your opinion. Yes.
So, but I'm not a lawyer. But if you look at what has been happening in our country, probably in the last 10-15 years, especially on similar things like this, they made us to believe that Supreme Court is not a court of evidence. That you don't submit new evidence. Yes. That if you don't present all those evidence, all those pieces of evidence at the appellate court, then you don't come to Supreme Court and start and begin to present new evidence. So it is the Supreme Court judges that will now decide whether they can accept this. But aside from whatever technicalities and arguments before the Supreme Court, personally, I believe that whoever comes to equity must come with clean ends. For example, you are the president of a country. You are leading the entire country. You don't even have to be the president, even if you are just the class captain of a class, and you are accused of doing something wrong. So now, for the sake of that institution, for the sake of that position, you have everything it takes to submit all the evidence. So the question is that what the presidency itself, what is the presidency covering up? So those are the questions that we need to ask. But it's obvious that something is obviously wrong, because even from the primary evidence that about the schools that were attended in secondary schools, the certificates are presented through different date of birth. So why can't the president come out and just explain in clear terms that this thing happened?
But do you think, sorry to cut you there, do you think the president would outrightly just come out and
if I attended Obafemi Awolowo University, for example, and if I attend and I had classmates and the institution is there, if I was the chairman of Social Democratic Party in Ondo State, up till about 2 months ago, about a month ago. So now if somebody had come out to say you did not attend Obafemi Awolowo University, and I know that they were not attacking me individually, because I had to protect the institution of the position of that chairmanship, the institution of the SDP. So the onus lies on me to present all the evidence. I have classmates, I have all the evidence there for them to say, okay, these are the evidence. Why do I have to keep going? Remember that these court cases are not even cheap, because they are not even here in Nigeria. Which one is much more easier to present evidence that this is what happened, or than to now go to the United States of America and start spending millions of dollars? So these are the things that we are for the sake of that institution, because whether we like it or not, I don't believe that whatever findings that was coming from the United States would upturn anything in the country. But it's obvious that the president is going to continue to battle with legitimacy for the next 4 years, and that's one of the things that the opposition parties were looking for, because they just want the president to continue to battle with that legitimacy, and they continue to give the opposition that opportunity. So if you don't have anything to hide, why don't you just shut them up and present the evidence in clear time so that everybody will rest
properly too? Because now it looks like the legitimacy issue is of course making him deter from the main course of action, of course, which is Nigeria, if you ask me. But then let's talk about these said PDPs and this thing. Some narrations have said that the PDP candidate is always a loser, and he's been contesting for years and there's not been a single win. Is he also riding on the same train, or do you think this is why he's actually pushing this harder than the previous times he has lost election?
Well, I don't really believe that. To me, I think our politicians, either Atiku Abubakar or any other politicians, they may look like, okay, yes, definitely they're ambitious, they may look like people don't know what they are doing, but they are also reasonable to an extent. Okay. Yes. Now, somebody like Atiku Abubakar, yes, he has been contesting for a very long time. But I don't really believe he's doing this just for him to emerge as the winner. I believe that, personally, why they are doing this is, why we have not really had people to do this, is because it takes a lot of fund. We need to be able to have to have a strong war chest to be able to pull something like this. Remember that this certificate and this issue did not start today. In fact, it started as far back as year 2000, when the then late Gani Faweyini approached the court and made it clear that it was a lie, that President Tinubu did not go to the university. In fact, at that time, what President Tinubu was claiming, where he was claiming to have, the school was claiming to have attended was University of Chicago. It was not even Chicago State University. It was made along the line that the national it wasn't University of Chicago, it was Chicago State University. But when even the late Gadifa, when we went to court, people even stoned us. This our same this same masses. Many people even stoned in the court. The same Keyamo that is now a minister under the same president, he took up the fight and he too started the agitation at that time. But the many of them did not have what it takes to follow it through, but this is a man, the person of Atiku Abubakar, who had virtually all the financial resources, and he was able to go through all the journey. Basically, I feel what they actually want is for the presidency to continue to battle with legitimacy, but I also have to advise the opposition too, because if you look at what happened during the last election, if the opposition parties had actually come together, if they had been assuming they were united, the way APC was united against PDP in 2015, perhaps this president would not have emerged. So the opposition parties have themselves to blame. So they cannot point as kissing fingers at the president. They have to blame themselves for number one, a party like PDP, because somebody like Atiku was so politically selfish that he jettisoned whatever gentleman agreement that they claimed to have had in the party, and it destroyed whatever was in the party. Now the other two different leading candidates, the person of Ubi and the man from Kano, went elsewhere. You can imagine what would have happened if those opposition that come together. So we are warning them again that 2027 is just it's just around the corner. If you continue to fight, obviously this presidency will continue to battle with legitimacy, but no matter the fight, no matter the tag that you give to his name in the general public, if that unity is not there, to remove the sitting president during election is not really a chance.
So now, are you suggesting that the PDP and the Labour Party should come together?
It's not just about the PDP. It's not just about the election. It's not just about the PDP and it's not just about the PDP and the Labour Party. Even a lot of other opposition parties like the MNPP, for example. But another problem that we have is that whether PDP or APC or Labour Party or MNPP, what we have seen over time has shown that virtually all of them, they are more or less like old wine in a new bottle. So there is no clear manifesto to really say, okay, this is what made this party to be different or to be unique from this other party. So we need to. So the opposition party should not just only be interested in taking over the power. They must learn from the failures of the past government, so that by the time they come there, they will not disappoint their people as well. So these are the things because this party that we have now, this government that we have now, based on what they've been doing, they are not really showing that they even understand or comprehend the problem of the country, and they are not showing that probably they can even take the country to the promised land. Well, it's too young in the day. It's too early in the day anyway. One can only hope that time that they will get it right. If
you are saying it's too early, you have to remember that we've gone past 100 days. But then these other parties that you're talking about, we have to of course analyze them. We have the Labour Party where they have the in-house issues. There's their Bure faction, there's their Papa faction. NNPP to still have their issues with of course some persons have said Kwankwaso did some anti-party activities that's going to see the presidency and all of that. But do you think in all of this, all these parties coming together, let's say even before 2027, do you think it would actually make things move forward with Supreme Court, or it's still going to be the same story?
Personally, I don't really think the Supreme Court will upturn whatever decision had been taken at the tribunal. Okay. Because if you look at that tribunal verdict, you realize that the truth is that no matter what we say, if a lot of people added emotion, but the truth is that the evidence wasn't there. Like I said, remember that even just 10 days to the general election, the Labour Party national chairman was requesting for the names of all the polling unit agents submitted to INEC from the INEC national chairman. So the man had to ridicule them publicly that you said that you don't know the names or have the names of your polling unit agents. So if those parties are now going to to the court, or in a situation whereby a PDP, for example, that is very strong. Now the same PDP now in a state where there are different factions, but probably in a state they only have 10% of the evidence. So how are you going to upturn anything? So they are not going to the Supreme Court with, like I said, with no evidence. The only evidence they've been presenting, the brandishing before us is this Chicago State University controversial certificate. But there is no other evidence that, as far as that last election is concerned, that is coming to light. Okay. So I don't really think whatever they are doing now is really going to affect the decision of the Supreme Court judges. Okay, all right. Thank you for doing justice to that. Now let's quickly do this in less than 30 minutes. There's party politics and Adewale's impeachment process. That's a lot is going on in Ondo State right now, and of course we spoke about it briefly yesterday on the press. But then let's take a detour and talk about it properly. There's this interview that is actually going rounds. I wish we had the video, someone play for us or something, where we had someone speak for the Ondo State governor as to why he is living in Oyo State and you are supposed to be the #1 citizen of another state. What do you think is happening? No, thank you. The man you mentioned who granted that interview is Dr. Adewale, and he happens to be the special advisor to the governor on special duties. It's quite unfortunate, and that interview that you listen to shows the kind of the nature of the people that we have, the nature of the not the opposition but the freedom fighters that we have, because this man happened to be one of the leading freedom fighters in the country in the past. In fact, when he was in UI, his nickname was, his appellation was High Priest, so everybody knew him. But unfortunately, this same man, and I remember this same man was also part of a Lance movement in 2009 during the time of President Umaru Yar'Adua's illness. He was one of the people who kept shutting everywhere down at the time that the president must resign or transmit power to the then vice president Goodluck Jonathan. Now the same man, now the table has turned. Now the same man is now, it's not even a commissioner. It's not even it's not the deputy governor. So the same man is now a special advisor. Just as the special advisor, he continues to spill the rubbish and he continues to rubbish the image of the state, because it will be rubbish. You tarnish the image of Ondo State if you are saying that they say that a governor had no place to stay in the entire state. Don't forget that Governor Akeredolu was not the first governor of the state. Since 1999, we've been able to have about four different governors, starting with Governor Adewale, then later Governor Olusegun Agagu, then we later have Mimiko, then before this Governor Akeredolu. So, and these same governors, they've been living, they've been living in that designated apartment. So whatever is said is just, and everybody knows that. Even the APC as a party knew that he was just saying. So what he uttered was now is it that since the governor has returned on his 3 months, of course he landed in Ibadan, that's the capital of Oyo State, and you could see in that interview where he was clearly stating that the governor is in Ibadan, but then he has a 2-bedroom flat in Ondo State or something, and it's been restructured. Is it that there is something wrong with the 2-bedroom flat, or you feel it's just lies upon lies? Because I mean, now it's clearly stated that the governor is not around, the deputy governor is not around, so who is ruling the state? Well, presently the state is more or less like on autopilot. And before I talk about the Governor Akeredolu sitting in Ibadan, staying in Ibadan, remember what happened in 2012 in Taraba State? There was a governor, a very flamboyant, popular governor in the person of late Governor Suntai. He was the governor at the time. At a point, so there was a time that the governor got involved in a plane accident, plane crash. So it was a serious issue. So they had to rush him out of the country. Though he never recovered till he died. But what I wanted to bring out was that there was a time when 2015 election was was close, but was around the corner. So the people who were close to the sitting governor, because between that 2012 and 2014, they never allowed that deputy governor, they never allowed him to function. So just as what they are doing with Ayedatiwa in Ondo State now, so they never allowed him, and they knew that if care was not taken, the same man will want to contest in 2015, and we also have a major say in whatever will happen in 2015. So they had to smuggle the sick governor Sultai back from wherever he was outside the country. So they had to lure him back to Abuja, and immediately arrived Abuja, they set the ball of impeachment ruling in Taraba just to remove the deputy governor. So the same thing is what is happening now, because it's obvious that our governor is still not strong enough to rule the state. So now you've already, since power has been transmitted to the deputy governor, why don't you now allow the deputy governor to continue to rule while you stay over there? But unfortunately, even while he was away, the deputy governor was not even allowed to do anything. There was no state executive council meeting. If the deputy governor called for any meeting, nobody will show up among the commissioners and all that. Even the commissioners were arranging their different meetings, and what they would be telling people was that the governor is approving. Nobody is really talking about the deputy governor, and the deputy governor was just sitting down there doing nothing. But now 2015 is close by. The deputy governor is already showing interest, indicating interest in running for the office. And there are a lot of other people in that same cabinet who are loyal to the governor, who also want to contest it. The first among them was the secretary to the state government, in the person of Mrs. Ondo. Then the other person is Wale Akintere, who happened to be the commissioner for information. Presently in APC, where they had about 18 people who had already indicated interest, and about 7 of them were close to the governor. So now they wanted the deputy governor out of the way, so that they will be able to have their say. But it's quite unfortunate that we just allow political interest to continue to set us back. A lot of things are down. Nothing is even happening in the state. Look at the issue of pensioners are dying on a daily basis, and nobody is even saying anything. Federal Polytechnic, they've been, so the school has been shut down for over 16 months, and nobody is saying anything. All the lecturers in the schools, they've not been paid for about 16 months. Their 16 months salaries have not been paid. All the retirees, they are not getting anything. Everybody is wallowing in poverty and uncertainty. Unfortunately, our political ruling elite, the only thing they're interested in is how to push someone out of the way and take over the state resources.
That's a sad one, but then we still have to talk about the impeachment. Now, the lawmakers have asked that the deputy governor withdraw his lawsuit, and of course there would always be one conspiracy theory or the other. And now the APC chairman, national chairman, that's Ganduje, has said he would prefer solutions to what is going on now. And then some persons have said, why now? I mean, when the case hit the Abuja court, then nobody said anything. Everybody actually pushed ahead. So could it be said that there's a lot going on behind the scene than we actually know? And do you think it should even be a party issue, given that now, I like the fact that you mentioned, he was laughable when you said Ondo State is on autopilot, but that is what it is, because now, given the state of that state, nobody is ruling, nobody is checkmating anything as it stands now. But do you think this impeachment, them asking him to withdraw his lawsuit, do you think that's one step forward for the state, given that even the deputy governor said is not in the state?
Well, let's look at it this way. The deputy governor and the truth has to be told. If there is no political solution, the deputy governor will definitely be impeached. Okay. It's obvious, because this will not be the first time that such will be happening. Since 1999, we've had governors, even president of the federal, will decide that this person will have to go at the state level. So by fire, by force, they will do everything it takes to make sure that they remove the person. So the only thing that can actually save the deputy governor is the political solution. And the statement made made by the House of Assembly is just for them to save face, to say, okay, we are not good, because it shows that all these things is just it has political undertone from the very beginning, because the till date the House of Assembly could not even state the exact reason why they want to impeach the deputy governor. At least virtually all the other states where deputy governors have been impeached in the past, they will state it in clear terms, or what their offences were. But in our own case, because the deputy governor was not even allowed to function in the first place, so okay, they could not say that okay, he awarded this money. Initially, they said that he bought 300 million naira bulletproof jeep out of the approved palliative fund from the federal government. But eventually, they knew that that this could not fly, because the person managing the money in the absence of the governor is Wale Akintola, who happened to be the commissioner for finance. So they now had to remove that. So they just came up with bogus allegations. But be that as it may, it would have worked whether the deputy governor like it or not. So the only thing that can save the deputy governor is the political solution, which happens to be what the national chairman. But like you said, it's obvious that the national chairman, the national secretariat of the party, within the APC, made more about what is happening. Because now it's obvious now that the hunter in the person of governor is now the one that is now being hunted. Because if he had immediately arrived in September, if he had stayed back in Ibadan, doing nothing, then just allow people to be flowing in the state, nobody attention will not have been shifted to him. But the fact that now nobody is running the state, it's only the deputy governor that we see as the symbol of authority in the state. Now we are removing the deputy governor. I remember today you cannot even count on, you can't even ask anybody the name of 5 commissioners in the state, and they'll be able to tell you, because they are not, they don't even allow them to function. The only people who are functioning, who are ruling, and this is an open truth, the 2 of them, they are Babajide Akeredolu and Betty Akeredolu, that's Akeredolu's son and Akeredolu's wife. So these are the only people. Now today in this state, now we don't even have any chairman at the local government level. No chairman anywhere. We used to have a caretaker. Now immediately after the expiration of their tenure in August, so they told all of them to leave. Today nothing is happening. Recently the federal government came up with the state government came up with another confusion of 33 local council development or SCDAs, and we're telling them at that time that look, we're just wasting our time, because we have already seen how this thing works in other places. Yes, we wanted government to be closer to the people, and the best way to do that is to go to the grassroots and move government closer to the people. But you don't move government closer to the people when even the existing 18 local governments that you have, they are not even doing well. Now today, Ondo State happens to be one of the signatory to IPSAS convention. That's the international public standard accountability, IPSAS. That's international public sector's accountability standard. That show that made it clear that for you to run the affair of the public sector, that the account must be open. Everybody must be able to pick up the book and say this is the amount being allocated to this particular local government. But now in the state today, we don't even have that. For the past 3 years, the state government have not come out to say this is the exact amount they allocate monthly to the state. And remember that every month they continue to receive this allocation from the federal government. Now the whole thing is such a mess. And so that now they went out and they said they wanted to create another LCDA. Aside now that LCDA, if you wanted to create an LCDA, at least we saw it when it happened. We witnessed when it happened in Lagos. When it happened in Lagos, what Governor Bola Tinubu did at that time was to constitute a committee, and Akeredolu did that. He constituted a committee in August 2016 for them to look into the creation of local council development areas. But we are not only going to do that. The committee will have to visit every community. Their works have to be obvious, and that was the same thing that was done in Lagos at that time. So it has to be well projected. People who have ideas will have to come up with their own position. So aside that, then you now present, they say we now conduct referendum for people to say, okay, we want this local government to be here, we don't want local government to be here. But nothing of such was done aside from that committee that was constituted and the billions of naira that was allocated to the committee. The only thing, we just woke up suddenly and they told us that now they are coming up with 33 SCDs. They released the name of 33 SCDs, but we never released the name of the headquarters or where they are. So they continue to share the headquarters among them. So I told them at that time that this was just a political use. It's not going to take anybody anywhere. Now for the past 2 months, the House of Assembly, in the space of within 1 week, they went out and said they've approved the SCD. Till date, they've not even made it public for over 2 months now. They've not even made the names of the headquarters of those SCDs public.
Speaking about that, do you think the governor is the only person that has a major influence in all of this? Because now, before the governor came, everything was on standstill. Now the governor is back in town, even though he's not back to the state yet, because now it looks like a lot is happening all at once. And that's one question. The second question, I'd like you to take it in one breath. Some persons have actually clamored for him to resign if he's not emotionally and physically fit to actually run the state. Are we looking at saying something? Because some persons have said, we took a poll somewhere, I think it was on WhatsApp, and then some persons have said you would never see a Nigerian politician actually quit or literally say, I'm resigning from this job because I do not think I'm fit enough to do the job.
Well, on whether Akeredolu is the only person doing all this, it's obvious that we know that the country where we are, at the federal level, the president dictates virtually every space. So in the state, government dominates everywhere. And the example was during the last general election. The governor in Ondo State, because it was fully on ground at the time, the governor ensured that virtually all the people who were against him, even in APC, that they never emerged as candidates at the primary elections that were conducted. So he imposed his people at every position in the state. Now that's why all the people who are the state House of Assembly now, there were many of them, 90% of them were unknown to the state. So it was the governor that imposed them. So whatever they do there now, definitely it was being, so they were being controlled remotely by someone who definitely could either be the governor or Babajide or Betty Akeredolu. So that's just it. Then on the second issue, we know definitely that Nigerian politicians, especially those who had made it to that level, that it's always going to be difficult for them to resign. And it has to do with the fact that when they were in power, you know, gone are the days when you have leaders, when they will tell you that, look, I just want to leave this office, I want to do something new. You can easily do that when you know you don't have any skeleton in your cupboard. I was a chairman of SDP for about 1.5 years, and I was able to manage all the affairs of the party during the general election. I was able at that election we presented about 36 candidates for different elective positions. I managed all the resources, but at the point when I discovered that that I just had to move on with my life, I had to do something new, so I tendered my resignation. Now I submitted virtually all the record to whoever whoever was going to emerge. So I did all that. So but I never had the fear to say, okay, I wanted my own person to be there, since I know I had nothing to hide. So if you ask any question, then I will give you the answer, because virtually all the records were there. So that is how politics ought to be. So and if we say we should go beyond criticizing, we should also put what we are saying into practice. But all these individuals, especially all these leaders that have been able to attain that position, virtually all of them, so they have skeleton in their cupboard. So and that's the more reason why they are more interested in whoever emerge as the candidate of APC in the 2015 election, because they know that whoever emerge, it is likely for them to still buy their way just as they bought at the Akeredolu second time. So that's right. So they are not definitely going to resign. And we know that the only arms of government that can actually initiate impeachment process is the House of Assembly. But from what we have been analyzing, from what you have witnessed with their interactions with the deputy, and how they went about it, they look like somebody, like set of people who will initiate any impeachment process. Definitely they are not going to do that, because like I said earlier, over 80% of them were the people that could not have had anything to do with the politics before, but were handpicked by the governor himself itself. So they see this as their own means of cashing out as well. So definitely they are not going to rock the boat that brought them in.
So I like to borrow the words of one of my co-presenters. She would always say, let's major on the major, on minor on the minor. Do you think the Ondo Assembly is actually not doing that?
Well, the Ondo Assembly, they are not even doing anything. Either major or minor, the Ondo Assembly is not even doing anything. Go and sit down and check all the laws that they've passed. You know, before, if you really want the best for your state, if you want the best, state is civil to, and let's say if you want the best for your constituency, you are representing a constituency, you want the best for such constituency. If you are presenting a bill that you know that maybe you want a project to be to be introduced to be introduced into your community, you are not just going to present a bill. You have to come up with funding plan. You need to know, okay, if for example if it's a building project, the building that sector that was meant to do that at the state level, how much do they have, how much will it cost for you to be able to do this, and everything has to be open. But when we have been saying since the beginning of this 10th assembly, since they started this their journey was just for them to say, oh, we passed this bill. I just mentioned the LCDA the other time. How can you create an LCDA and you will not come up with, and you will not present, you will not also approve the funding plan? Because remember that it's going to cost a lot, because now you have to start setting up a new set of headquarters. Now, aside from setting up there, you now have to start thinking of how to empower the place with manpower, bring in the staff, bring in the equipment and all that. Then you also now have to think of how you are going to sustain that headquarter for the next for the next 4 years. But the funding plan wasn't there. Till we speak, as we speak now, the name of even the headquarters have not been released. What less of the funding plan? So they are not even doing anything at all. Recently, plush cars were presented to them, and basically that's what they are interested in, and that's why many people have been many allegations have been flown around that all this is also another means for them to cash out. Whether that is true or not, that's why even in Ondo State now, the fact that the deputy came to the House of Assembly members and the deputy and the speaker came to Abuja to meet with the national chairman, and thereafter they said, okay, they were going to all the impeachment process. Oh, people were saying the men definitely something must have done. People in Ondo State now, the general joke is that please make sure you call your assemblyman or woman so that they will transfer something to you. So they are not really doing anything, either major or minor. Nothing is being done at all.
All right, thank you very much, Stephen Adewale. It's been an insightful analysis with you today on the Polity. Thank you so much for shedding more light on most of this on those state recent happenings. I hope to have you one more time on the program. Maybe not one more, maybe so.
I will always be here every time you call.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. All right, our viewers at home. Now that is where we wrap it up for this segment.